Have you ever dreamed of starting something of your own and then quietly talked yourself out of it? Maybe the thought sounded familiar. I don't have enough money. I don't have the right experience. What if I try and it fails? These thoughts visit more people than we realize. They arrive softly, but they are powerful enough to stop many good ideas before they even begin. But history and real life often tells a very different story. Sometimes success does not begin with money. Sometimes it begins with clarity, with patience, and with the courage to start small. Today's story is gentle, but deeply practical. It reminds us that real success is rarely built in one giant leap. More often, it grows step by step, choice by choice, and lesson by lesson. Many years ago, in a quiet rural town just outside a busy American city, there lived a man named Harrison Cole. For most of his life, Harrison had been known as a sharp and disciplined businessman. He had spent more than 30 years helping build and manage large companies. His decisions were respected, his experience was widely valued, but time, as it always does, slowly reshaped his priorities. As Harrison entered his later years, he began stepping back from the fast pace of corporate life. He handed most of his responsibilities to his grown children and chose to move somewhere quieter. He settled in a small farming town where life moved at a gentler rhythm. Mornings were slower there, evenings were quieter, and for the first time in decades, Harrison had the space to simply observe the world around him. Yet one thing never truly left his heart: his curiosity about business. Every morning, Harrison took a long walk through the local market. It wasn't a large place, just a row of small stalls, food carts, and family-run shops. But what it lacked in size, it made up for in effort. He noticed something that many people would have overlooked. All around him were small entrepreneurs trying their best to build something meaningful with very limited resources. A woman selling homemade bread, a young couple offering fresh vegetables, an older man repairing tools by the roadside. Harrison found himself quietly impressed. One morning, while walking past a modest snack stall, he was greeted by a warm voice. "Good morning, sir. Would you like to try something fresh?" The speaker was a man in his mid-30s named Daniel Brooks. Daniel's stall was simple, clean but modest. On the counter sat small batches of handmade grain snacks. Harrison accepted the offer with a polite smile. He took a bite, then another. His eyebrows lifted slightly. The flavor was surprisingly good, natural, balanced, and clearly made with care. "You made this yourself?" Harrison asked. Daniel nodded proudly. "Yes, sir. My family recipe." Harrison studied the product more carefully. The taste was excellent, but the packaging was plain. Just a thin plastic wrap with a small handwritten label. "How long have you been selling these?" Harrison asked gently. Daniel's smile softened. "Almost 10 years," he said, "but growth has been slow. Mostly regular customers, people who already know me." There was no bitterness in his voice, only quiet honesty. And in that moment, something clicked in Harrison's mind. The product was good, but the positioning, the presentation, the reach, all had room to grow. As Harrison continued his morning walks over the next several days, a quiet question began forming in his thoughts. If someone started today with very little money, but with the right strategy, could they still build something meaningful? The question stayed with him. Finally, Harrison made a decision. He would test the idea himself, not with large capital, not with a big team, but starting small, on purpose. Over the following weeks, Harrison spent time observing the local market carefully. He listened more than he spoke. He asked quiet questions. He paid attention to patterns others ignored. One important detail stood out. Many small food vendors depended heavily on quality flour, but often paid high prices for inconsistent supply. It was a quiet pain point in the local business ecosystem, and Harrison knew something important from decades of experience. The best business ideas rarely begin with flashy products. They begin by solving real problems. He began researching local grain sources. He spoke with farmers. He studied pricing. He compared quality levels. Slowly, carefully, he built a simple plan. His goal was not to create something complicated. His goal was clarity. Reliable local flour, consistent quality, fair pricing, clean, trustworthy packaging. Nothing fancy, just useful. Even though Harrison had the financial ability to start big, he intentionally did the opposite. He began with a very small batch, just enough to test the market. At first, the response was quiet. Some shop owners showed little interest, others hesitated, a few politely declined. But Harrison did not feel discouraged, because he understood something many beginners misunderstand. Early rejection is information, not failure. Each no told him something valuable. Was the price slightly off? Was the packaging unclear? Was the messaging too weak? He listened carefully to every piece of feedback. He adjusted, refined, improved. Weeks turned into months. Gradually, patterns began to emerge. Shop owners appreciated the consistent quality. Small food vendors liked the reliable pricing, and the clean, story-driven packaging began attracting attention. But Harrison did something else that quietly accelerated his progress. He kept talking to customers, not just once, repeatedly. Because markets change, preferences shift, and assumptions often age quickly. After several months of careful adjustments, Harrison introduced a refined version of the product: locally sourced grain, carefully milled flour, simple but modern packaging, and a brand story that honored the local farming community. This time, the response was different. Orders began increasing, not dramatically overnight, but steadily, consistently. And then Harrison made one more thoughtful decision. Instead of trying to grow alone, he created a simple partnership model. Small vendors with limited capital could purchase and resell the product with reasonable margins. It was not complicated, but it was powerful, because now growth was shared. Local entrepreneurs benefited, shop owners gained reliable supply, and Harrison's small experiment began quietly expanding beyond the village. Months later, even Daniel, the snack maker who had first caught Harrison's attention, became one of his strongest partners. One afternoon, as they stood together near the market stalls, Daniel spoke thoughtfully. "You know," he said, "I always thought success needed big money." Harrison smiled gently. "Money helps," he said, "but clarity helps more." Daniel nodded slowly, because by then, he had seen the proof with his own eyes. Real success is rarely about starting big. It is about starting wisely. It is about listening carefully. It is about improving patiently. And most importantly, it is about solving real problems for real people. Over time, Harrison's small project grew into a stable and respected local brand. Nothing flashy, nothing loud, just steady, meaningful progress. And perhaps the most powerful lesson of all was this: you do not have to wait for perfect conditions to begin. You do not have to wait until you feel completely ready. Sometimes the smartest path forward is simply to start small, stay observant, and keep improving. Because momentum, once built carefully, has a quiet way of opening doors we could not see at the beginning. If this story gave you something to think about, take a quiet moment today and ask yourself one simple question: what small step could I start, even with what I have right now? If you found value in this story, please take a moment to like the video and share it with someone who may need a little encouragement today. And if you enjoy calm, practical stories about growth and success, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next one. Thank you sincerely for listening. Wishing you steady progress, clear thinking, and meaningful success on your journey ahead.